So the dose which
Okay.
was put up to help me cope
Hmm.
with my mother's death.
Hmm.
Uh,
Hmm.
after a time, actually, it becomes harder to cope. But the immediate situation is, in any case, in the immediate situation, I think I have some kind of coping power. As in, I'm one of those who, in the first 30 seconds, I panic. I'm absolutely petrified. Like, when there's a crisis, I go into the freeze mode. And the moment I come out of the freeze mode, I get into the fight mode.
Okay.
Then I get into
Right. So that's
action and I suspend all emotion at that point. You see, when my mother died, I did not cry.
okay.
Last week, I was probably crying over crying over having lost my mother for the first time. Actually crying.
Because at that point of time, you had
Actually
to
crying.
function and you had to take
I
care of
had to
things.
function, and then I continued to function, and then one thing after another happened, and I don't know what part the drug played in it, and what part just going into the future and dealing with problems played in it. I felt rage, I felt emotions towards other people, but I only ever felt good vibes coming from my mother's death. If there were any bad vibes, I was blocking them out. I don't know if I
Yeah.
was blocking them out or what was blocking them out, because it's not as if being on and the medicine in itself was not a very, you see, my doctor was very responsible and not giving high doses of medicine. Initially, in fact, after my nervous breakdown, he did not even give a medicine. He only gave me something to calm the nerves. And he sent me
Okay.
to this lovely lady who's my therapist, whom I talk about even today,
Yes. Yes.
who is now 80. She will be 84 this year. Be
Okay.
39
That's
born. So, and she has helped me a lot through the recent illness, my legal challenges. She's helped me a lot. And
she's a very jolly woman. I've seen her pictures you've
yeah,
shown
she's
me.
very jolly in her very quiet way. And you've seen the
Hmm.
picture of that birthday party where they all.
Yes.
You've also
Yes.
seen the
Yes.
picture of the par launch where she was a much younger woman.
Yes.
My
Yes.
mother was the old woman that day, and it was the last event of any consequence that was held in this house in my mother's
Okay.
lifetime, and we really thoroughly enjoyed that event. And we enjoyed it all the more because we had all these people from ordinary homes who were going to become our students for English
Okay.
and
Okay.
computers. And
Wow.
that was the thing. And that event was to launch that project. And she was chief guest in chief, if I may say so, because I invited her and her husband and another person from the former colleague from the IT industry, and we did things very differently. I don't know if you've seen that video, but what we
No, I
did,
haven't.
what we did was, normally when you launch something, what do? You cut a ribbon, you light a lamp.
Yeah.
I said, I'm
That's the
not
usual
going to
way.
cut any ribbons. Why should you cut ribbons? So I had tied these ribbons to the doorway, and the guests were all waiting outside in the front room. And
Okay.
I invited,
Right.
you see, I invited the chief guest. I sent in the students, all came in, they were introduced, and they were all made to sit down and all the rest of it. And then the chief guest like Rothrout ma'am was chief guest in chief, so to say. So like there were these three ribbon colors. I had put three colors, and they were lovely. One lovely chocolate. Two of them were the kingfisher. You've seen the kingfisher, right? That white-breasted
Yes. Yes.
kingfisher, the very
Yes.
common one in
Yes.
all our rural parts. I have
Yes.
this guy right here in the neighborhood.
Hmm.
I have videos of him also sitting on the neem tree and screaming right here outside my window. So you see, they're very flexible. When they don't get fish, they eat anything you give them.
Yeah.
They eat normal,
Something
like
that they do.
they eat normal human food. Like I have seen one eating sandwich.
Sandwich.
Yes, a sandwich,
Okay.
a cucumber sandwich. So, so they are, they are another breed, very interesting. And I had chosen,
Certainly.
you see, the venture I had before I started PAR was it was my teaching service, and it was called Project Highway.
Project?
Highway.
Highway. Okay. Okay.
TIYWAY. Turn Infotech.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
So you see where I'm rebelling. Everybody is saying, these computers have come. We had better behave ourselves and use them. That's what you're told, right? You're told be good now, and remember your job is threatened, etc., etc. So like this was the reverse of that mantra. Ki, this
Okay.
guy has arrived. This guy is your tool. He reports to you, not the other way around. And the tagline
Yeah,
of that
that's very
venture
true.
was opposes enslavement to technology. 20 years.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, that was very far-sighted for that point of time.
Yes. So that is the first thing. Coming out of a tech company and starting a service and creating this. And I did this and it worked. People came. And I would basically tell them, what are you scared of? It's you're in charge. It's not in charge. So you see, even
That's
the
true.
kids who would come to me, I would, you see, people come with this impression, like the school principal who said computers can do no wrong. So basically, I tell them, look, this is an idiot. Okay. You have brains.
Absolutely.
So when this thing makes a few mistakes, it's making these mistakes because it's an idiot. Be patient with it. So I would use all my gift of the gab to teach these people. And these people learned.
Okay.
And
Because
it sort of moved along, it's this came after I came out of my depression. I continued to teach, but it was a sort of unbranded kind of teaching. And then it sort of shifted itself to this branded venture, so to say. So it was called Project Highway, and that's the colors came from that. And that sort of mutated from IT into soft skills and various other things, because it was IT was also changing. People were not needing so much training. As in, lay people were not needing so much training. I was offering many things there, like trainers training. If you are teaching IT and you don't know, because after all, it's a new subject introduced in schools at that time.
yeah.
Many schools did not have it. So things have moved exponentially. See, after the phone came.
Yes.
This was pre-phone. So everything was a bit different. And there was room for a thing like Project Highway. And yet, even as I was running it, I realized that, that sooner or later, this thing would also outlive its usefulness.
Everything does, no?
Everything does. So it had its lifetime. And anyway, the colors, I had the colors of that word, like I had a lovely website I made on my own using all the crude tools that were available then. I sat and I did not even have a broadband. I tested it on a dial-up line. It was like, at least it had a menu and it had options and you could go around and you could decide what to do. It had that much on it and it connected you somewhere. So it wasn't all lost, like it was going somewhere, and it could have gone somewhere except that it wasn't needed for it to go anywhere. So that was the end of it. But it had this lovely chocolate brown the same color that the kingfisher feathers had. And that time I was into art, and
Okay.
a lot into this. I mean, the whatever rudimentary digital art. I mean, people were already going into Photoshop and stuff. I didn't have the hardware for it, but I have downloaded trial versions of so many of these things, fiddled with them. I was a proper IT person at that time. Then I outgrew it. So yesterday when I was playing with Canva, I felt like an idiot, starting fresh. So so the basic thing is, I chose those colors, that lovely blue, that kingfisher turquoise blue,
The
that
turquoise blue,
brilliant
yeah.
blue, and that brown. I managed to get ribbons in those colors. Those ribbons were
Oh.
hanging here in my house for a very long time. I
So
don't
you were
know.
thinking of the kingfisher when you were deciding the
I was
colors.
thinking of the kingfisher because that kingfisher
Right.
used to sit here and chatter with me. And I said, let's take this guy's colors and work with them. So I used those colors as the backdrop, and I had a very nice, lovely website I had. And I had set up, I put in a script over there into that, where you could press a button and launch a rocket, so to say. I mean, it was rudimentary, but it happened. So I set this thing up. I had these ribbons, and these three guests came. They untied one ribbon each, and I had a green ribbon, which was the green light, the go for the project. There was no ribbon cutting. 3 ribbons were tied. 3 ribbons were very gracefully untied, and the guests walked in, and this thing was filmed. And then she was like the chief of the chief guests. So she sat down here at my computer, and all these children crowded around. Children who were the participants, and that stupid fellow from Times of India who invaded the event. And Times of India have bothered me so many times, but they've never done a single story. They've wasted my time and gone.
So what was this guy from Times of India doing?
This guy was a photographer.
Okay.
Times of India. And he kept taking snaps of our event.
And that never went.
That never went
made
to
it.
Times of India, nor went anywhere. So in the video, there's plenty of frames of him being videoed doing his job, getting in everyone's way. So we also expose to you how the media works.
Yeah.
Anyway, so ma'am wrote out, parked herself at the computer, and there was a welcome screen over there, and she read that loudly, and she was video filmed reading that. And then I said, come, let's launch this. I mean, the whole thing is recorded on the video. And guess what?
That video is still there.
Oh, it's there. It's there on one of my channels. I'll give you the link. Watch the whole.
Yeah, please do.
Yes, and you see, one of my students who was helping me to do this project, she was not one of those children. She was a senior student from a good school, like good school as in school. But she was my student in a project which was like where something similar was being done for students, like for students, for less advantaged students to have training.
Okay.
And I would supervise the project, and there would be these student coordinators, so the students were divided into groups, and basically these students were being guided by me on how to approach those young students who were from the neighborhood and how to teach them English and IT.
All right.
So this project is an offshoot of that project.
And that became project.
I was sent out of that project.
Why?
Politics, school politics.
Okay.
School principals and their bosses. So
no wonder you have
my student was very attached to me. See, so she was very fond of me. So she she lost interest in doing that project also after I left. And then we had a conversation and I said, let's do this. Let's do this from my place. And that student became my daughter. She's one of my adopted children.
Oh,
No,
that's so sweet.
she's the last person my mother recognized before she passed. So she would call my mother Granny. And she was a lovely girl, and she got married, and she is in a job. She had her own instabilities in life and her own anxieties,
Right.
and she is now in charge of her life, so to say. So that's a good thing.
That's a
And
good thing.
she was assisting me on this project. So she would be
Hmm.
like, we had two computers here, and we worked on both of them, and these students would come over. And
Okay.
anyway, so she filmed the whole thing, and that was on one of those tapes. Because cameras
Okay.
had those, her camera had that, these digitals were just coming up.
The
Our
handy cams.
things,
You're talking about the handy
the
cams.
handy cams with the media, the kind of media we use, not the tape. The handy cams with the
Okay.
hard disk and the CDs were just coming.
All right.
Her handy cam was like the
Hmm.
old vintage which had a tape.
Okay.
And the tape had to go for conversion.
Talking about the Kodachrome reel, right?
No, no. It's a cassette tape. No, it's a
Okay,
small
it's a
video
cassette tape.
cassette.
All right.
Yes, the camera had a tape recorder in it, and not a
Okay.
CD
Okay.
or a DVD or a hard disk.
Okay. So it's okay. All right.
The
All right.
recording that was the media on which the recording was done. So that media had to be converted to a CD. And those jobs were done by various of these shops.
Hmm.
There was a shop called Zoom 16,
Yeah.
if you remember that shop. This is Zoom without a number. The number is, this is Zoom 40. It throws you out in
The
40.
cyber cafes. Yes.
That was
Yes.
a shop called Zoom 16, if I remember right, in on Gariahat Road. And she took it there, and that doofus over there converted it at the lowest quality and gave it.
The lowest quality.
The lowest quality, or not the best quality. So sadly, a monumental video is available only at a very poor quality. And somewhere or other, she lost the original tape, or there was a problem with it, and she couldn't go and
Okay. I was about to ask that. Why
time
you?
goes by. Time goes by. I told her, please reconvert it. Please reconvert it. I told her many times.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not the high quality. I don't know what then, as I say, a person dies and a lot of things there's a big shake up in one's whole life after that. My mother dies, and everything changes. All your equations with life change, when such a
It
thing
does. When you
happens. Yes,
when you're accustomed to a person, I mean,
yes,
you're
yes.
accustomed to a habit. That's a different thing. You're accustomed to a person for your entire life,
And
and
that is
suddenly
the
that person is
only
gone.
person in the house with me since so many years.
So many years. Yes. Yes.
13 years since my
Hmm.
father's death, and we have been together. And that person makes her exit. So
And
it's like
the entire world comes crashing
like
down.
severing a limb, from a person.
Yeah.
There
Absolutely.
is all
Absolutely.
that. It's more like it becomes more of a medical case than a case for grieving. I mean, who is
Right.
even going
Right.
around grieving? You see the logic with which the doctor increased the dose.
Yeah.
And
I
a lot of
understand the
things, my
perspective of the doctor.
glaucoma attack started happening at that time. I didn't know what was happening. I
Hmm.
had no idea of what glaucoma was, even. I had no idea of any eye problems, because eye problems are zero in my family.
Okay.
Nobody had so much as a cataract in my family. Nobody. Absolutely nobody. When my mother was 86 years old and she went to get glasses, Like when she was 86, she died. When she was around 84, 5, she went to get glasses. She went to a shop. She went to a doctor, sorry, who checked her eyes.
Okay.
The doctor said, there's absolutely nothing wrong with your eyes. There are cataracts, but at 84, it is normal to have cataracts. And then she freaked. She said, what are you going to do to those cataracts? He said, absolutely nothing. Those cataracts will be there. You can see, na? You can see with these glasses. Nothing needs to be done to your cataracts. What he was basically trying to tell her is that she would not outlive her cataracts.
Yeah, and there's no
See,
easy way
because
to
at
say
that
it.
age, that was the stage of the cataract. Everything
Yeah.
happens more slowly. Even though we say that a person degenerates fast after a certain age, I noticed that people degenerate only when there is a trauma. My mother
Yes.
degenerated because she had a fall and she had a prosthetic device put into her.
That's true. That's
That
very true.
prosthetic device, the fall is a trauma. The prosthetic device is 10 times the trauma.
Absolutely.
Your body lives
That's
for the
very
rest
true.
of its life with a foreign body inside. And at that point in your life, when you're 80 years old, you're coping with a foreign body. You haven't yet been fully given the all clear by your doctor, and your son goes and dies in front of you. Do you
Yeah.
expect degeneration in such a person or not? Your body
Absolutely.
takes the hit, no?
Yeah.
She didn't cry. She didn't howl. She did none of the things which a person could come apart, but she didn't. She was all held together. And in the very end, when she was in the hospital, even the doctors were doing stupid things with her, like putting feeding tube. But there was a very compassionate intern over there. And that I would have a conversation, I would chat with the intern sometimes because I was really distressed over what was happening.
Yes, because they're just starting off, so the corruption part has not yet
Yes, and they're
been
fresh
injected in
out.
their brains.
And he said, you see,
Yes.
from what I have observed and from what I have read, your mother is having very acute depression. I see a sign of very acute depression. Can you tell me some background? And then I said, yes, you see, she lost her son at such and such a time. And he said, your mother is highly intelligent. I can make out she is highly intelligent. You are both highly intelligent. She's extraordinarily intelligent. And people who are extraordinarily intelligent like that suppress their grief completely.
They do.
And they have this high functioning depression. And now that she has had this shock of her fall and injured her head, everything is coming out. She's blabbering
Everything is coming
because
out.
of that. All her
Yes.
blabbering, you're not able to decode her blabbering, but it's coming from somewhere. It is not
Somewhere. Yes.
necessarily brain decay. It is maybe her inability to articulate what the pain inside her.
Right. Right. That's very true.
And you
It's
see,
very
I
true.
watched this whole dying process, and I know for sure that it happened for a reason. It happened to educate me about many things, many, many things.
Yeah, surely you learned a
I
lot of
also
things
learned
after
I
that.
also learned a little bit about how even in the best places the medical mafia works.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I mean,
That's very true.
she was sent there so that she could
Hmm.
die with, basically she was already dying. Okay.
Hmm. Hmm.
Her heart rate was 40.
That's a very less. That's
Her
very low.
blood pressure was 60/40.
My goodness.
With that, she was still able to get off her bed and sit on that chair on which you do your business. She was not able to go to the bathroom, but for the last time before leaving the house, she sat in that and at least she got some relief. So
She was a She was a very strong woman.
She was a very strong woman with a heart rate
Very
of
strong
40
woman.
to
Yes.
be able to get up and sit on that.
Absolutely. I can't even think of,
But you
how a
see,
person
when,
could do that.
yes, but you see, when the doctor said the cardiologist paid a house visit.
Okay.
Back then, he took 1,200 rupees for it. Back
I
then.
mean, that's a huge amount of money for
That's a
back then.
huge amount of money in
Yes.
27.
Yes.
A huge amount of money. He's somebody I know, somebody I trust. But this is the way they
Hmm.
charge.
Yeah.
And if they
They
don't
certainly.
charge like that, believe me, the mafia will beat them up.
That is also
They
true.
have
That is
a
also very true.
covenant. Their community puts that pressure on them to be who they are.
Yes.
And they are terrified of being ostracized by the community. And there are these few doctors who are not terrified and they stand out. And I'm very fortunate that I came to know some of these doctors later in life, much
Right.
later in life. And these doctors I came to know much later in life have helped me to get out of the clutches of the mafia, which is why I'm able to throw out these drugs one by one, knowing that these drugs are actually doing nothing for me.
Right. I mean, there are
I mean,
multiple drugs that are just placebos.
they are placebos, but they are doing harm. You see,
Yeah.
the
Uh,
first principle of medicine is first do no harm. That is the first
because
line.
at the end of the day, a foreign object is getting
A
induced in
foreign
your body,
object
no?
is
So that,
unnecessarily going into
yeah.
your body and playing games with it.
Yeah.
So, since I stopped, to come back to the drug I stopped, I don't think most
Hmm.
of this can be shared with our friends, but maybe very small bits can, because I'm being very open about it. I have to be open about
Hmm.
it. It's about time I opened my mouth, at least to someone I trust. So, having thrown out the drug, I
Hmm.
feel that I'm having very acute perception of all my feelings and all my emotions, which had been partially numbed over the years.
Does it not feel overwhelming?
It feels it feels overwhelming, but the important thing is to have the courage to know that you will not have a breakdown.
Right. Right.
When do you break down? When you lose that courage.
Right.
So what
Exactly.
do I do? I'm sitting with those feelings. I'm sitting with those feelings of anger, rage, negativity, everything, and saying, I'm feeling this pain, but it's pain. I don't want to numb the pain. Pain is also one of the realities of life. So let me feel this pain of everything I went through.
Yeah, because it has been numbed down for so many
It
years.
has been, and I realized a lot of numbing has been done. And now that that
Hmm.
numbing has lifted, I'm finding an altogether altered thinking process.
That's what happens. That's what happens. You start feeling all those things, I guess,
So
all at once.
I am like, I used to feel momentary anger, say, with my mother, momentary
Hmm.
annoyance with her, without
Hmm.
being even able to articulate in my head why. But today I feel the anger, and a whole chain of events comes to me, and I start saying, okay, this happened on this date, that happened on that date, and all those memories have suddenly awakened. And okay, this
Right.
happened in 1982, and this was the emotion I felt when it happened. You see, I've always felt that emotion, but I have pushed it aside. But today I'm not pushing it aside. I'm working with that emotion and alchemizing it and saying, okay, that was 1982, that happened. What happened was very wrong. Now process it, put it behind you.
Now that's your strength, you see.
I can't make
Uh,
that event unhappen. It happened for what?
Absolutely. That's the thing.
My mother made bad decisions. My mother herself has been unfair to me for reasons of her own.
That
And
you
I
cannot turn
cannot
back time.
undo that.
That's,
On Mother's Day,
yeah.
I was screaming at my mother. I even posted that in a more gentle way. I said, "Come down. I have unfinished business with you." I was screaming at her. I was crying that day. I wasn't celebrating. I said, come on, you have a lot of things to answer for. That doesn't mean I don't love her.
You do love her.
I'm
You
putting
cannot.
her down because I love her.
Yeah,
I would have got her
that's
out
a
of my life
very,
if I didn't love her.
yeah.
There's something
The
in say?
the anger that is coming out is just because you know her so much, and you know her so much because you love her, and you cannot be genuinely angry on any person until and unless you have loved that person with your
Absolutely.
entire heart and soul, right?
Yes, yes. And she could be angry with me for messing my life up. But I'm trying to tell her that all the mess that has happened is because you messed up then. It's not because you messed up then, it's because I responded in an immature way to the way you messed up. Today, I would respond differently to that. If you were to do the
Yeah,
same
that's
thing
true.
today, I would respond differently to that.
Yeah,
But then you see,
for
like
sure.
I have received an education, a free education, so to say.
Hmm.
It's taken me a very long time to get educated, but here I am. And I'm now thinking, planning which drug to throw out next because there are two of them left. If I can throw both these out, then I'm the winner.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm
I get
taking
you.
it slow. I'm taking it slow.
Hmm.
I believe the drug will tell me when it wants to be thrown out.
I mean, uh, we have been taught from our very young age, that it's perfectly normal to induce certain chemicals in your body, and I think it's not perfectly normal.
It's not
To
perfectly normal. Anyway, chemicals get into your body. Your body's job
I
is
mean,
to throw them out.
at times it might be necessary, but
Crisis
it's not
intervention.
harm.
Crisis
Yes.
intervention trauma. Medical
Hmm.
science wins over everything when there is trauma. When there is an accident, there isn't a damn thing anyone can do. All your prayers are not going to save a person who is broken to pieces.
Hmm.
And this is where the genius of medical science, crisis intervention, trauma intervention comes in.
Absolutely.
A person, for whatever reason, goes into a heart crisis, cardiac crisis. A person, for
Hmm.
whatever reason,
Hmm.
leave the reasons out. You can say, okay, the person should not have, if the person had lived differently, this would not have happened. But once it has happened, it has happened. You need
Exactly
crisis
my point. Once it
intervention
has
for this.
happened, you cannot just
I
undo
need
that.
not
It
have
has
had a
happened.
nervous breakdown if I had spoken up openly about a lot of things to everyone,
Because at that point
including
of time, your perception was different.
my
Your
perception is
life was.
different. I had it, but having had it, I needed intervention. And I did not get
Right.
any intervention from the mainstream medicine, which is the tragedy. Everybody says it's a Sunday, I'm busy. My Tibetan doctors came and bailed me out of the crisis. And
Yeah, we'll talk about them.
they don't make house calls. It is not part of their protocol at all to make house calls. It is not part of their system of medicine to make house calls. And they were the ones who on that same Sunday, when they don't have, their chamber also is closed on Sunday and they're saying their prayers, they made this house call and they administered some treatment,
Hmm.
some very basically a lot of acupressure because the nerves were all out of sync, and brought me to some semblance of sanity.
I
And I
mean,
will never forget them. I will never forget them for this amazing.
that was some major trauma that you were going through at
That
that
was
point
a
of time.
major trauma. That was a built up
Very,
trauma. And you see, that
yes.
trauma was building up from way long back. And when you see, there were events happening here, and I was partly blaming myself for some of the events that were happening because maybe the
Hmm.
events were happening because of my life choices. And
True.
why was I making my life choices? Because I was not able to speak up freely about what my aspirations were. So you make one set of choices to avoid another, to avoid another which is worse.
Yeah, choosing the lesser evil.
So yes, so you're navigating your path by choosing. 1 second, 1 second.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
this milk was threatening to turn into pies. I forgot
Oh.
all about it. So here, here's to some coffee.
I just have
I'm
water,
getting
so yeah, cheers.
all sorts of colors coming on my Zoom today. So, see, I changed my webcam settings to get in more light and more smoothness. I think it's working, right?
It is working.
It's not looking.
It is.
I'm not doing anything. I haven't changed the lighting in the room.
Hmm.
It's the same old
It
lighting,
is working.
so it seems to be working.
Hmm. It does.
Yeah, it's a little colorful, but
Absolutely.
can't help it.
It is. It
Anyway,
is
and
very
Zoom is
colorful.
throwing us out, but then let's come
Yeah.
back. I'll save this and we'll come back to our life choices.
Yes, 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 yes. Absolutely.